If your seedlings are doing this before you plant them outside, you'll need to harden them off so that instead they look like this. Both of these plants were planted on the same day, but only one has been successfully hardened off. In this video, we'll learn how to do just that. I must start the seeds inside under grow lights, months before it is safe to keep them outside. For eggplants and peppers, I'm planting these as early as January, where my outside temps are only reaching highs of 35 degrees. And while my plants are happy as can be, growing under bright LED lights, mimicking the sun, there are three major things that these plants are not getting: true sunlight, rain, and wind exposure. Hardening off is the process of moving your plants out slowly outside and transitioning them into plants that will be able to handle those three things that they aren't getting. If you skip the hardening off step, the majority of your plants will succumb to major stress and potentially even death to one of those three things. And trust me, most gardeners want to skip this step. There is nothing more annoying than the lengthy hardening off process. It takes multiple days and even up to several weeks, depending on your environment and what you're growing. And it has to be done twice a day, moving the plants outside and then moving them back inside at night. It's often referred to, at least by me, as the dance of the plants. A week or 2 week event where I get up, move 200 plants outside, and later in the day, move them back inside. Those trips start to add up when you do them, day after day after day after day. So why do we harden off plants? Well, it's kind of like a boot camp for your seedlings. At first they're weak and they can't fend for themselves, but after several weeks of regular training, they'll become strong competitors inside your garden. First, the sun's rays. They're a problem because your leaves have only been eating junk food, that is, artificial light, and they don't have strong enough systems to cool the plant down while it's performing photosynthesis on regular sunlight. The plant leaves are much thinner than those that grow under the sun's true rays, and the sun hitting these now thin leaves hurts the plant. This results in what is known as sun scald. Now, sun scald can happen on any plant, even ones that have been planted and raised outside from the get-go, but it happens frequently and most intensely to plants that were planted too early from seedlings grown indoors. You can see here my salvias, they were planted too early after I seeded them indoors and did not take the proper time to harden them off. Next, rain. Rain doesn't just provide water in nature, it also provides a physical pelting that the leaves endure. The same amount of pressure applied to leaves indoors would cause the leaves to tear and break. I find that when beginning to harden off plants, it's good to get their leaves a little wet right in the morning to help build up that strength for future rains. Speaking of building the strength, the most important reason of all these three reasons we harden off our plants is the wind. I live in a really windy part of the country. Our winds can gust up to 25 miles an hour regularly while maintaining speeds about 15 miles an hour for our consistent winds. And wind is the number one thing over rain and even springtime sun that will beat up your weak seedlings. Wind is going to test every bit of the plant, the roots, the stem, and the leaves. Untested plants will snap in my winds. They will blow over and contort with consistent winds. So what's my trick when it comes to hardening off plants? Well, before we talk about that, let's talk about the normal way that normal people harden off their plants. First, you put your plants outside on the first day for 1 hour, and then you bring them inside. In the next day, you put them in an hour of shade, and then an hour in the sun, and you bring them back inside. On the next day, day 3, you put them for 2 hours in the shade and 2 hours in the sun, and you bring them back inside. On the 4th day, you'll put them out for 4 hours in the shade and 4 hours in the sun, and bring them back inside. The next day, 6 hours in the shade, 6 hours in the sun, bring it inside. On the next day, so this will be day 6, 12 hours in the sun, 12 hours in the night, right? Bring it back inside. And on the last day, day 7, you can leave it outside for the full night. Now, if it doesn't freeze, again, your temperatures are still good. You do this for 2 days, so you'll have 48 hours of just leaving the plant exactly where it is. This isn't what I do. It's a little confusing to keep track of all of that time, and maybe not all your plants are starting on the same day, and tracking which plants are where they are in the hardening cycle can get confusing. Instead, I leave all my plants outside from day 1. I do bring them back at night, but once I put them out in the morning, they stay there until nighttime. And the reason I'm able to pull this off is because of where I harden my plants off at. The first thing is location. It is on the east side of my house. So when the sun rises, it is not getting sun until about 8 a.m. and then it only gets sun until about noon. From there on out, it's naturally shaded by my house, providing the ideal amount of sunlight. I've built this contraption with an old UV sunscreen. I built a place where my plants are receiving more sun than being in the shade of an object, but not enough to scald their leaves during the time that the sun's shining down through the shade. This prevents almost all of the sun scald. It only happens if one of the leaves kind of peek out behind one of the shade. I do this for 5 to 6 days, and then I begin to leave them overnight. Once the plants have been overnight for 2 times, I remove the UV screen and give them the full sunlight. The next day, they've been outside for a week, and with the wind, rain, and sun that they've been experiencing, they should be ready to go in the ground, as long as there's no upcoming freezes. Keeping track of the weather is the other part of hardening plants. You can't let any annuals get to 32, and to be safe, don't let them get down to 35. Some plants, like peppers and eggplants, don't like anything under 45 at night, so if you're still getting below that 45 routinely, you may want to delay hardening or extend it a few more days and keep the plants inside anytime you near that 40-degree mark. And there we have it, the hows and whys to harden off your plants. When you're all said and done, you can sell off any of those plants you've hardened, like I've done here, showing them off on the windiest day we've had this spring. Those are gusts of 25 miles an hour knocking over my pepper plants. Come buy one.